And welcome back. Apple's scary event was last night. And well, it was a little scary. Woo, Halloween today actually. Anyways, so let's take a quick look at what's going on here. Let's start with the biggest disappointment ever. The iMac. Tech specs. 24-inch, 4.5K Retina. That does not bother me. Not a bit. The M3 chip, well, that started out to be a good idea. However, only up to 24 gigabytes of unified memory and a 2 terabyte max storage. Does Apple hate the iMac or something? Like, seriously, the M1 iMac, forget it. I wouldn't give you a nickel for it, okay? Just no real horsepower there, just bleh. Okay, I thought, M3, they would actually do something practical here. But the M3 chip, although a good idea, they still binned it at 8 cores and CPU and 10 core GPU. That is not going to be that much of a performance upgrade from the M1. In realistic terms, no way. Especially with being limited to 24 gigs. They could have at least had enough respect to put the thing at 32 gigs. I mean, 16 to 24, that's not that much extra RAM. I mean, you do the math. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Oh, wow, look, 8 gigs more. I'm having a hard enough time at 16 gigs now with some of the programs that I run on my M1 Mini, right? Because I've only got 16 gigs because that's all I can do. And I wasn't about to go after the M2 Pro because, well, it maxes at 32 gigs, which for me would be ideal. Okay, even 32 gigs should last me 5 years, hopefully. But it's the horsepower that is degrading too with M1 because our OSs are getting huger, our programs are getting more demanding, and yeah, it is just starting to teeter, but it's not teetering so much on the performance as it is on the lack of RAM. And the iMac, as far as I'm concerned, is now a disgrace with this M3. And they could have given us different tier models, like before there were 3 different options, right? And, but either way, we still kind of got stuck with the whole 7x8 as the minimum or 8x8. And all it was, the difference was ports on the back and Ethernet or no Ethernet, right? Well, this is definitely a huge disappointment. And the price, well, I mean, we are talking Canadian dollars, but still, $1,700 for that? Ugh, no. I can't deal with this. Like, this is just horrible, Like, what's the big diff? Like 8x8, 8x10. Woo, 2 tier levels we get. If they would have done something like a Max at least, or maybe even a Pro, but even a Max with more RAM capabilities and, that sort of thing. That would have been a good idea, okay? But I think they hate the iMac. I don't know what it is. And I'm in the market for a new computer. I'm awaiting financing approval to see what I'm going to get, if anything at all, because that's the hard part when you're financing. I'm not financing through Apple. But anyways, so I'm kind of torn now. Do I go after a Mac Studio, okay, which I would be looking at the Max 12x30, okay, and 32 gigs of RAM, half a terabyte of storage for $2,700. Okay, now that's option 1. That saves me desk space. It just sits on top of my Mini because my Mini is going to be turned into a music production only machine because at least it's more than adequate for RAM and everything else for that. But like I said, it's getting tight on everything else, right? So I have this as an option, or we can take a look at the new Mac Pro, which is kind of appealing. I love this new space black they've got going on. This is really super sick. I really like this. And we have 3 tier levels. It's like, oh, that looks pretty cool. So let's hit the order now button. Now, like I said, I'm going M3 Pro if I go for a laptop. Apple's cooling system, the way it works now, seems to, in theory, should eliminate thermal throttling that we saw happening on the M1s, right? On the 14 and 16. And of course, the M2s were a little bit better. These promise to be even more better. And of course, ray tracing. That is something that, you know, ray tracing is a feature that we're going to want, especially for gaming. So this puts them more on the gaming platform than ever before. Again, the iMac's a bit of a disappointment in all these areas. But we do have 11-core CPU, 14-core GPU, 18 gigs of unified memory. That's a whole whopping, what was it, 16 to 18? I'm having a hard time with 16. What's 2 more gigs of RAM going to do, right? Even on a base model, right? This should be higher, right? $2,700. It's the same price as the M2 Studio that's coming with 32 gigs of RAM and half a terabyte of storage and more cores for CPU and GPU. Though we don't get the ray tracing, but still, you know, I mean, and yeah, you can say we could compare a laptop to a desktop or not, but desktops will run ice cold in comparison to a laptop. And I have never been one for video editing on a laptop because that's part of what's killing the poor things. Too much heat, right? It's hard on the battery. It can prematurely swell your battery up with that excessive amount of heat inside, and it can't get exhausted fast enough because there's no cooling coming in technically because MacBooks are sealed, right? So you just got the outward vent. But the new system, they show it sucking in and then cycling and pushing back out. So that's where we may have some hope. I have some time. Luke Miani, I watched his video this morning, and he's going to be testing these things out. So I want to really sit back and see what's happening before I make a decision on which route I'm going to go, because either one is the same price, but I'm getting more for my buck with the Studio than I am for this. But I would like the ability to finally have a laptop that's not going to thermal throttle on me when I push it hard, you know. And of course, there is the convenience of having laptop and desktop in one, because you go to clamshell mode and throw it on external display, which I already have, so I have nothing to buy extra, right? It's just desk space it's now going to take up extra. I'll have to figure that one out if I decide to go the laptop route. But the reason I would go for the Pro is because the Max is just financially out of reach, okay? I'm looking at the Max here, and I'm kind of like, well, 14 by 30, now that's pretty appealing. 36 by 1 terabyte, I think that would be perfect for $4,300. I wouldn't need a new computer for the next 6-7 years. More than likely. I don't replace my computers like some people do that have more money than they know what to do with. I wish I had that kind of money to dispose of every time Apple came out with a new computer, okay? But I still wouldn't do it anyhow. I'm the kind of person that likes to hang on to stuff until it's kind of like no more good to me. And my M1 Mini is getting to that point very, very severely, right? But when we take a look at these, let's do a selection here. Now, 18 gigs of RAM, it can go to 36 with the current core choice. If we move up for an extra $300, which I may have to, okay, then at least we can still go to 36, okay, which is fine. $3,500. That's not completely unreasonable, and it gives us a 12 by 18 core versus 11 by 14. So we gain 4 more GPU cores, and we gain 1 more CPU, but at least things are a little bit better playing field. Now, how they've divided performance cores and efficiency cores, they really got to stop this garbage, right? Like, we need more performance and less efficiencies. You know, just give us like 2 efficiency cores, so when we're running on battery, okay. But when we're plugged in, or whether we're doing a demanding task on battery, we can just use all those performance cores. Or how about this for an idea? How about we ditch efficiency cores altogether? They're not saving that much battery power over performance cores anyhow, right? The performance cores aren't chewing up that much extra power. you know, and we've got longer battery life here too, over the M2s, right? So again, big bonus there. Oh, and by the way, if you want any of the M2s right now in the MacBooks, you're going to have to head over to the refurbished store because you can't buy them now off the main site where we are right now. They've kind of took everything down in that sense. So you'll notice that even the MacBook Air is no longer a new item for 15-inch. Now, they did ditch the 13-inch MacBook Pro. Thankfully, they did that. That thing is nothing but a piece of garbage. It's nothing more than a MacBook Air with a touch bar that you're paying an extra $150 price tag on. Who cares? But thank you, Apple, for finally ditching it. That was, I think, the best thing they could have ever done for their rep, because that laptop has always been garbage in my books. I don't know why they make it, but hey, you know, there are people that like the touch bar. So, and speaking of which, if we go to the M3, this replaced the 13-inch. And we have 8 core by 10 core with 8 gigs of RAM. Apple, you did such a nicer job on the higher ones. Why couldn't you at least have some respect for this old girl that you just made and you barfed it out with 8 gigs of memory that is freaking pointless? Anybody who understands computers, understands software, understands operating system suckage of RAM, 8 gigs is garbage, okay? The operating system is 5.5 gigs of RAM now just to get to the desktop. This is stupid, okay? And $2,000, I wouldn't pay $2,000 for this with 8 gigs of RAM in it. I might be tempted at maybe $1,200, but not freaking $2,000. You know, but I still wouldn't do it anyways because, hey, 8 gigs of RAM is pointless. However, let's see what they did to this poor thing. Oh, look at this. They binned it like the iMac. 24 gigs tops for RAM. Okay? This is not a production machine. This doesn't even deserve the title of Pro. Okay? Pro means we get access to a lot of horsepower at our configurational choice, and we get a lot of RAM accessible to us. Even if this was maxed out at 32 gigs, that might have been a little bit more acceptable for the bottom of the line MacBook Pro. Okay, but 24 gigs, that's 16 to 24 is not that great of a difference. You're not really gaining. Again, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, you get 8 gigs more RAM. That is not going to do most people other than base users. So this is like the basic MacBook. You might as well have just thrown it in the trash can and eliminated this one too and thrown in the MacBook Air. Because if we take a quick look at the MacBook Air, okay, of what it's offering us, and we got to hit that. Okay, let's go to the M2. Okay, the M1's a joke. It's 16 gigs. Okay, so we're going to go buy, and we have the 13-inch. Okay, now that's the M1 chip, and then we have the M2. Okay, but let's take a look at the M2 because it's a little bit more closer. For $1449, yeah, it does start out with 8 gigs of RAM and 256, but it's the same deal, 24 gigs of RAM max. You know, we got 8 by 8 core or we got 8 by 10 core, right? But 24 gigs of RAM. Just buy the freaking Air. I mean, it's, you know what I mean? Oh, but the M3, Kev, the M3, screw the M3. What are you paying for here? This is $2,000 just to go 8 to 10 core, right? But even if you go 8 to 8, it's still almost $2,000 for $150 more to get 2 more cores for the GPU. I think that's actually worth it, really. But this is what you've got, and this is 15-inch. That's 1 inch more screen real estate. It's thinner. It's likely lighter too, and it's probably going to have the same battery life, if not more. Okay, because after all, it is an Air, right? But when we compare to the Pro, 14-inch M3, 8x10, 8x10. But I mean, so really, you're just buying a MacBook Air now with a little bit more, maybe CPU and GPU power with the same cores, right? So you're getting a little bit more power edge on that M3 over the M2 Air, but you are also losing 1 inch of screen. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, what do you do? And you're still stuck, you know, as 8x512, right? And you're still stuck at 24 gigs of RAM. I mean, it's dumb. So what did Apple really do here? Well, all they really did, kids, was they gave you 1 more inch of screen and ripped out the bar, okay? They ripped out that bar, and they gave you 1 more inch of screen and a little tiny bit of a performance increase in comparison to the M2. Because to me, this is a tiny bit, okay? And if we've learned anything over the last couple of years with Apple Silicon, they said, oh, the processor is this speed, but then in testing that all the YouTubers did, it turned out to be just a little bit slower, okay? So it's kind of like, well, this is why I was a little nervous about the Scary Fast event, because it's like, oh, come on, what are they going to do this time? Hopefully something good. Well, I must say, I really love the look of this new black color that they've got going on. I think that is very exciting. Although we get space, what do they call this? Just space gray. I like the space black. I think the space black is really sexy. Black is one of my favorite colors. I mean, I wish they did even space gray in the studio. Because old fart silver is getting to be really ridiculous. I mean, I know I'm getting older and everything, so are a lot of us, but come on, we like to have something sexy on the desk to look at when we glance over, you know. I mean, looking at this silver, it reminds me of silver cars. You know what I mean? I've only ever owned 1 car that was silver, only because it was given to me by my parents when I went to college. You know, otherwise, yeah, I probably would have repainted it like I did my Fifth Avenue. But anyways, so I'm kind of torn. I do like the fact they've definitely upped some stuff here to a reasonable amount. You know, I think they're probably going to be doing a really good job with these. I just hope for video editing, these things don't go thermal crazy. So I'm waiting for the testing to show up on the YouTube channels and see how far synthetic benchmarks can push these, etc. You know, against real world. And if it can change my mind about laptops, because I go by experience. When I did my video about why you don't use laptops for video editing, that's personal experience in my own experience. So, you know, and it's not the first rodeo I've had. I've done this on PCs, I've done it on Mac systems over the years, and I've always been disappointed with how they perform, okay? And of course, I do see a lot of people doing video editing, and I see a lot of machines going boom, boom, and ending up in the repair shops for one problem or another. Okay, so I'm kind of like, it's not just about, you know, defects that can happen. It's also, when you push a system way too hard, like a laptop, you're going to be expecting trouble. So hopefully Apple has solved that on this round. So this is where I'm going to sit back, and I know I have 2 choices, okay, that are going to cost me the same amount of money. Which one is going to be my better choice, okay, in the long haul? The Studio, which is going to offer me also 4 Thunderbolt ports, 2 USB-A's out the back, plus the higher HDMI, plus I get 2 Type-C's and a card reader up front, okay? So, and that's $2,600, and I already have all the other equipment. Mind you, it's not M3, okay? But how much of an advantage are we going to see? Because I'm sure we're going to see some comparisons between M2 and M3 as well, especially in the laptops here, because we don't have any new desktops other than the iSore iMac. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I am tempted by this after watching their video last night, okay? I am tempted on this one. It's got me really, really tempted. But I think for me, I would have to hope I get enough budget should it come through for me. I would want to go to the route of going a little bit higher on the chip, okay? And I would definitely, no matter what, I'm definitely going to have no choice. I have to go to 36 gigs of RAM because 18 is not going to do me for a 5-year term, you know? But this configuration definitely will do me for the next 5 years, you know? So that's how I'm looking at things. But let me know what you guys think, like I said, in the comments below. And let's stay tuned to the YouTube channels who are going to be spending their hard-earned money bench testing these things to help us all figure out if this stuff is worthwhile, or should we just all stick it out with M2s for a little bit longer and hope to goodness that M4s are going to be even better. We don't know what's going to go on. But Apple, please get rid of these freaking efficiency cores, especially on desktops. On desktops, we don't need them at all. Laptops, probably yes, but if you're pushing a pro laptop to do high performance stuff, you still got to ditch the efficiency cores. They're pointless, okay? They're nothing but garbage. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Thanks, guys, for watching. Catch you in the next one.